The divine palm appeared. Genre: ancient swordplay. Author: unknown. After listening, please comment on your feelings, and don't forget to subscribe to listen to the latest episode. Episode 5. Chapter 24. Accepting the position of clan leader. The two teachers and students Kim Fi fought with Ho Van Sin and his nephew. The battle was so intense that it is difficult to describe. More and more villagers and people around the lake came to watch, gradually surrounding the four people's battle circle. However, no one dared to rush into the guild, nor did anyone dare say a word. It seems that this place has strict rules. Those who want to fight can only fight alone. Every fight is considered a major event. Without the above order, absolutely no one would dare to speak up and intervene. Kim Fi uses the long Van Dun technique, both attacking and defending, moving and retreating flexibly. Ho Van Sin's martial arts are truly superior, especially his boxing techniques. His moves are extremely skillful. At that time, he had already collected the pipe. His palms were pushed forward at the same time. His palms were rolling continuously, gradually pressing against the opponent. Seeing that, Kim Fi smiled slightly, both happy and secretly praising, because he realized that Ho Van Sin's martial arts skills were not inferior to Luke Thieu Ma Quan in the past. The two of them went back and forth. Kim Fi's body movements became faster and faster. The fighting position became more and more intense. On the other side, Bien Ho fought Ho Fong equally fiercely. Both have muscular bodies, incredible strength, constantly fighting hand to hand, only hearing the endless popping collision sounds, enough to see the ferocity of the match. Realizing that Ho Van Sin's moves became stronger and faster each time, Kim Fi knew that if this continued for too long, someone would be injured. He immediately let out a clear howl. Using his body technique one-line few, his palm force poured out like a storm, straight through the opponent's wind-blown palm shadow, escaping the encirclement in the blink of an eye. When Ho Van Sin saw it, he let out an "oh" sound, quickly retracted his hand, and shouted loudly, "Fong Mi, stop quickly." Ho Fong immediately replied, "Yes." He immediately stopped and jumped out of the ring. Bien Ho saw that the opponent had withdrawn his hand and also withdrew his fist, standing silently next to the giant hammer. At that time, Kim Fi slowly extended his hand and turned the cart towards Ho Van Sin and everyone. As soon as he saw the cart, Ho Van Sin immediately changed his expression, quickly knelt down on the ground, and loudly shouted, "The leader of the gang has arrived. Iron Palm Diamond Ho Van Sin committed a great crime. Please punish the gang leader." Hearing that, all the people in the lake were frightened, kneeling down and chanting in unison, "Sun Chao Tui Truong, Bitch Ba Sing. Long live the gang leader." Kim Fi smiled gently. "You don't need to be too polite. Please stand up." Everyone stood up one by one, their eyes directed towards Kim Fi filled with respect and admiration. Ho Van Sin clasped his hands and respectfully said, "I respectfully request the leader to return to the Bitch Ba Kum Grand Altar." Having finished speaking, he personally led Kim Fi to the lake shore and stepped onto a large boat. The disciples on the shore waved their hands wildly and shouted in unison, "Welcome, boss." Kim Fi quickly stepped out onto the bow of the boat and nodded slightly in return. The cheers rang out again, even more shocking than before. Right after that, a small boat rode nearby to welcome them. Then everyone carried Kim Fi and Bien Ho to the big boat. As soon as you set foot on the boat, music immediately rang out, and at the same time fireworks were lit, soaring straight into the sky. At this time, the sky was dark. The fireworks crackled, shining brightly in the night sky, so beautiful. The fleet of more than 100 boats turned around and returned to the island in the middle of the lake, and soon arrived. On the island, the lights and torches were bright, making Kim Fi extremely excited. He did not expect Bitch Van King Guest to help him so thoughtfully. The boat glides slowly, melodious music blends with colorful fireworks, weaving an incredibly beautiful and jubilant scene. Bien Ho stood there dumbfounded, watching and listening without saying a word. Suddenly there was a boom sound in the air. He immediately pulled Kim Fi's sleeve and quickly said, "Master, look." King Fi raised his head and looked up, only to see fireworks in the air, gradually appearing 4 colorful words: "Welcome Clan Master, extremely brilliant." Those 4 words slowly fell, followed by another explosive sound, turning into 4 crimson words: "Long live the gang leader." In just a blink of an eye, they continued to transform into 4 golden words: "Bang fortune soang long." The welcoming music from the island reached my ears. The boat slowly entered the harbor. King Fi saw on the shore, standing close to the great men wearing white Ao dye, holding large swords, with a heroic spirit. In front of the welcoming group were 5 old men with white hair and beards, different clothes, but everyone had strong bodies. In front of them, there was a middle-aged man with eagle eyes, a hooked nose like a parrot's beak, and a fierce expression, standing tall. As soon as King Fi set foot on the shore, this person strode forward, clasped his hands, bowed his head in ceremony, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and loudly announced his name. Fan Tien Du Fu, Bao Dao, led the Crane chiefs of Bich Ba Bang, welcoming the arrival of the Bang Master. The voice was resounding, the energy was full. It was obvious that the martial arts had reached a superior level. Looking at that scene, King Fi immediately understood. He knew that the middle-aged man was the current deputy gang leader, inheriting his father's position in the past. The old men standing behind are all former subordinates of Bich Van Sword Guest, and the young men behind are their descendants. In Bich Ba Bang, there is a rule: when the elders know that they are about to pass away, they will definitely choose an excellent person to inherit. The chosen ones are mostly the children and grandchildren of the family. They must go through strict selection and have all the virtues and qualifications to be able to pass on all the martial arts, and even put all the effort into their successors. Therefore, the next generation's successor is often stronger and more advanced than the previous generation. Wherever King Fi goes, the gang welcomes him. When he entered deep into the middle of the island, he realized that everyone here had a prosperous spirit: tall and massive houses, thousands of acres of good fields, and fishing boats everywhere. Not only is it self-sufficient, but wealth is extremely abundant. Finally, King Fi headed to Bich Ba Kung. In front of the palace gate, 16 young men dressed in white were respectfully waiting, each with a muscular body, carrying a blood-red long knife on their backs. The leading young man had a handsome appearance and extraordinary temperament. As soon as King Fi looked, he guessed that they were Tu Fong Koi Dao, and the leader must be Gong Pham, the captain of this team. Seeing everyone bowing in unison, he nodded slightly in response. After that, Bao Dao led King Fi into Bich Ba Kung, with Bien Ho following closely. Gong Pham said softly to Bien Ho, "Please stop." King Fi turned his head, smiled and said, "He is my disciple, surnamed Bien and named Ho. In the future, I hope my brothers will guide and take care of him." As soon as he finished speaking, someone came out to lead Bien Ho back to his resting place. Entering Bich Ba Kung, King Fi saw that the inner palace was decorated extremely nobly, truly a place to enjoy all the wealth and glory. In the palace, 8 beautiful young ladies dressed in elegant white silk dresses came forward to welcome them, whispering, "Welcome to the Bang Master." Bao Dao bowed once again to King Fi and respectfully said, "Everything in Bich Ba Kung is in charge of Bich Ba Kung Chu. If the guild leader has anything to advise, please let me know." Having finished speaking, he bowed and immediately left. 8 young girls bowed to King Fi and invited in unison, "We invite you to come to Ngoa that to rest." Ngoa that is an incredibly spacious bedroom, located on the top floor of Bich Ba Kung. The ground is covered with white carpet. The color can be changed at will. Just press a button and it will immediately transform as desired. There is another switch. When activated, the walls on all 4 sides immediately fall down, revealing a mineral wall as transparent as glass. Standing in the middle of the room, you can take in the entire scene as far as you can see. From outside, one cannot see the people in the room. In addition, there is another transparent wall, not open like the other 4 sides. When this wall is pressed, the entire clan can admire the appearance of the clan leader. In the palace there are only 36 beautiful young women with excellent martial arts skills, specializing in serving the clan master and guarding the inner palace. Those 36 people were called Bitch Ba Fairy, and were also the concubines of the clan master. Each of them were rare beauties. The Tu Fong Koi Dao team is responsible for defending outside the palace. After understanding all the rules, the Bitch Ba Fairies asked in unison, "Bang leader, do you need someone to stay behind to wait for dispatch?" Kim Fai quickly replied, "No need. When we have work, we will call." The Bitch Ba Fairies withdrew. Kim Fai immediately lay back on the soft bed, closed her eyes and rested for a while. The next morning, a Bitch Ba Fairy brought breakfast. Before entering, she gently pressed the latch outside the door, and immediately melodious music sounded from Kim Fai's bed. At that time, he woke up, heard the music and said loudly, "Just come in." A young woman with a beautiful appearance and sexy appearance, hands as white as bamboo shoots, holding a white jade tray, gracefully walked in. Seeing Kim Fai wearing a white Ao dye, arms crossed and smiling at her, she blushed slightly and bowed. "Boss, do you get up so early?" Kim Fai smiled and replied, "The lady also woke up so early." Then he pointed to the table and continued, "Just put breakfast on the table." Bitch Ba Fairy too glanced at him meaningfully, smiled and said, "Let the maid serve the master." Kim Fai waved his hand, smiled and said, "No need. Lady, just sit down, we'll eat and talk." She immediately placed the jade tray on the table, sat next to the maid, and said gently, "Invite the boss to use it as a stomach lining." Kim Fai, while having a meal, asked about the situation in the palace. Through conversation, he realized that the Bitch Ba Fairies were not only beautiful in appearance but also had unpredictable martial arts skills. Ordinary experts in martial arts are afraid that they will hardly be their opponents. Furthermore, all of them are skilled in piano, chess, poetry, and drawing. It can be said that they are rare talented women in the world. Kim Fai had just finished eating breakfast when someone came in to report. There was a deputy clan leader who asked for an audience. He immediately told Bitch Ba Fairy to prepare the tray, then went down to the hall to meet Bao Dao. At that time, Bao Dao was already wearing a pure white shirt, waiting in the living room. As soon as he saw Kim Fai step down, he immediately stood up and respectfully greeted. At this point, Bao Dao's true appearance becomes clear. As expected of Fan Tien Du Fu, his eyes emitted two bright rays of light, his rough face exuded a cold aura, containing murderous intent that made others wary. Bao Dao said solemnly, "High-ranking leaders in the state have gathered at Bitch Ba Duong, waiting to pay their respects to the leader. There are many important matters that require the clan leader to be decisive." Kim Fai nodded. "Okay, let's go now." Bao Dao led the way, heading straight to Bitch Ba Duong. As soon as they arrived, Kim Fai saw 18 people, young and old, already seated and waiting. In the middle of the hall was a large table, with 3 old men sitting opposite each side. The middle place is reserved for the chief and deputy chief. Kim Fai and Bao Dao sat down, only then did everyone dare to sit down. After everything was stable, Bao Dao stood up and solemnly announced, "The inauguration ceremony of the president begins." Next, someone loudly chanted, "Test the token." Bao Dao turned and respectfully said, "Please place the token on the table." Kim Fai immediately followed suit. The old men on both sides took turns passing it around to examine it, then returned it to him. The announcer spoke again, introducing. The deputy gang leader stood up and introduced the characters to Kim Fai one by one. Among them are 7 old men who are former subordinates of Bitch Van King Kok, such as Long Dian, Fan Tien, Van Sin. The rest are all their descendants. Although some are beautiful and some are ugly, everyone exudes a handsome and extraordinary temperament. After the introduction ended, everyone began to discuss the main affairs of the clan. The meeting lasted all morning before being dissolved. All matters large and small were handled satisfactorily by Kim Fai on the spot. Half a month later, work in the state is completely stable. Ho Fong and Bien Ho were both placed in the Tu Fong Koi Dao team, and also became close guards of the clan leader. Kim Phi now understands everything in the state, and the high-ranking figures also gradually understand him. It is that understanding that makes everyone admire. A month later, all the notables in the gang knew about Kim Phi's tragic past, and immediately advised him to lead the gang to the streets, both to raise the reputation of Bitch Ba Bang and to take revenge on his behalf. As the Mid-Autumn Festival approached, a large number of people gathered in the Bitch Ba Kung Lounge, including 4 Great Diamonds, Fan Tien Du Fu, Bitch Ba Bat Dragon Vong, Quam Thiat 5 Knights, and Kum Pham, captain of the Koi Dao team. Everyone wore white shirts and looked solemn. Bao Dao slowly stood up and said loudly, "According to this deputy's opinion, the clan leader should soon lead his brothers into the Wanderer and eliminate the corrupt people. On the one hand, he avenges his parents', on the other hand, he maintains martial justice, and at the same time rebuilds his clan's old reputation." As soon as he finished speaking, Phong Kim Kwong, although small in body but extremely strong, continued in a hoarse voice, "I agree with the deputy gang leader's opinion. We have to kill them in a fight, so they know what kind of character our clan leader is." After that, everyone spoke in turn, each person saying one word, but the opinion was unanimous. Finally, Kim Phi slowly said, "In 3 days, we will be on our way to Mak Fu Mountain, the Mid-Autumn Festival." As soon as the words ended, the whole hall echoed with thunderous applause. Everyone in the state, old and young, was cheerful and in extremely high spirits. Kim Phi continued to instruct. Deputy gang leaders Bitch Ba Bat Dragon Vong Ton Phong, Kim Kwang Lu Tien, Quam Thiat 5 Knights and Ho Van Sin stayed behind to guard the headquarters. As for the clan leader, he will lead Phuc Ho Kim Kwang Loi On and Du Long Dien into the Central Plains. As soon as Kim Phi finished speaking, Phong Kim Kwang quickly stood up and asked loudly, "Master Bang, although I am old, my sword has never dulled. Why not let the original president come along?" Immediately afterwards, the 5 Knights of Steel also stood up at the same time. The Golden Knight raised his voice and asked. The original also had the same idea. When the gang leader goes on this trip, he must bring a lot of brothers with him. Kim Phi stood up, pondered for a moment, then replied, "This." Fan Tien Du Fu Bao Dao continued, "Lord Bang, the world is full of evil, people's hearts are deceitful. I also think that the clan leader should bring more personnel." Kim Phi thought for a while and slowly said, "No matter what, we must first respect our ancestors' foundation." Everyone chimed in. "You should put the safety of the boss first." After discussing for a while, it was finally decided, Kim Phi and a few people would go first, while Phong Kim Kwang and Quang Thiat 5 Knights would follow behind. Everything was decided, everyone dispersed one by one. Following Kim Phi first were 2 tall, muscular men with fierce looks, Phuc Ho Kim Kwang Loi On and Du Long Kim Kwang Long Dien. Next is Gong Pham, captain of the Koi Dao team, handsome in appearance. Behind them are Bien Ho and Ho Phong, tall and heroic. A total of 21 people left together, moving as fast as the wind. Chapter 25. Blood flooded the jungle. Even though it's autumn, the weather is still hot and everything is quiet. On the official road from Shaanxi to Jiangxi, there was dust and sand, and the sound of horse hooves was like thunder. A team of white-shirt knights, riding white horses, were galloping with majestic aura. The leader with a handsome appearance is Dang Kim Phi, the new leader of Bitch Ba Bang. It was already past noon, the hot sun made everyone sweat and dry their throats, but no one seemed tired. After walking a short distance, Long Dien urged his horse forward and said, "Dear boss, should we spend the night in Shaanxi or Tiankou tonight?" Kim Phi asked again, "Do you guys feel tired?" Long Dien laughed loudly. "Even if we travel for another half a month, we will not be tired." Kim Phi smiled. "So just go to Tien He Cao and stop." Running a little further, Loyon jumped up and said, "Dear boss, there is a garden nearby, with a wine shop in it. According to the wishes of the original president, please let you come in and rest." Du Long Kim Kwang laughed and interjected, "Old Loy, you must have a drink this time." Loyon turned and asked loudly, "What's the boss's opinion?" Kim Fai nodded and smiled. Gong Fam also spurred his horse forward. Kim Fai immediately instructed, ordered the brothers to dismount and rest. Gong Fam turned around and shouted, quickly go to the forest to rest. The whole team immediately rode their horses into the forest, and sure enough, they saw a tavern. Kim Fai dismounted his horse about 10 meters away from the tavern, avoiding the dust flying inside. Everyone dismounted their horses one by one, tied them under a tree, assigned 2 people to guard the horses, and the rest went to the tavern to rest. When the innkeeper saw so many customers coming, he was overjoyed and rushed to the door to welcome them. The restaurant was not large, with more than 10 people sitting in, and it was already full. Before long, meat and wine were served one after another, laughter and chatter were heard in the shop, and eating and drinking were extremely bustling. Koi Dao team members took turns coming in to enjoy rice wine. Everyone was eating and drinking when suddenly a guard ran in from outside and reported, there was dust and sand on the official road in the distance. It seemed like more than 30 people were riding horses, asking the clan master to make a decision. Hearing that, the shop suddenly became silent. Everyone listened attentively. Kim Fai stood up and said loudly, please continue to enjoy your rice and wine. Just always be careful. Having finished speaking, he turned to Quang Pham and told him, send 2 more people to guard, wait to see the situation and then consider. Immediately, 2 team members were sent out to strengthen defenses. In the shop, the atmosphere gradually became bustling again. Quang Pham lowered his voice and asked, if those people have malicious intentions, how does the gang leader plan to deal with it? Kim Fai pondered for a moment, then asked everyone, do you have any insight? Long Dain raised the wine cup and took a sip, then said, when we left the camp, many people dressed differently, afraid we would be noticed. Those people most likely came with malicious intentions. Loyon laughed loudly and interjected in a rough voice, what are they? If you dare come, just fight. Kim Fai took a sip of wine and slowly said, according to my observations along the way, this group of people is most likely the main force of the Thiat Hong gang in the Ho Quang region. Gong Pham immediately spoke up. Could it be that because they were still preparing their men and horses a few days ago, they did not dare to act rashly, and only now did they gather enough forces to follow us here? Kim Fai nodded. That's it. In recent years, the Thiat Hong gang, while expanding their power, has been restrained by Nam Trang and Bak Bao, so they absolutely do not allow other gangs to operate in their area. As soon as he finished speaking, the guard rushed in to report. The opponent has about 50 people, all fully armed, wearing yellow battle clothes, currently only about half a mile away. Kim Fai said in a low voice, okay, you go out and investigate further. The team member immediately received orders to leave. Kim Fai turned to Long Dain and told him, give the prostitute 10 taels of gold, send 2 brothers to escort them to safety, and then immediately return. Long Dain immediately followed suit. The store owner was extremely scared at first, and had to listen to a detailed explanation before accepting the offer. Soon, all the people in the horde were taken into the forest to a safe place. At this moment, the thunderous sound of horse hooves approached. Brothers in the clan quietly sat at attention, waiting for the enemy to appear. Kim Fai coldly ordered, Gong Pham, go out and see where they are. Gong Pham obediently went out, observed for a moment, then returned to report. The opponent was about 50 people, each of them fierce, wearing a yellow shirt, with a black semicircle embroidered on their chest. We are now only about 100 meters away. Kim Fai immediately stood up and shouted, prepare to fight. He sent 2 more members out to strengthen guard. The Koi Dao team members quickly took off their white shirts, revealing a fire-red battle robe inside. Each person wears a blue sword on their waist, the steel gleams, and the chest is embroidered with blue curves like water waves. The people sitting as chairmen also took off their outer clothes one by one. Only Kim Fai still wore a long robe. Her face was calm, standing still in the tavern. Every movement happened as fast as lightning. In just a moment, the entire red battle robe was revealed, murderous aura filled everywhere. Kim Fai immediately ordered, get out of the tavern, get your weapons ready. Everyone simultaneously pulled out their swords, held them tightly in their hands, then rushed out, arranging around the edge of the forest. After making arrangements, Kim Fai still remained cold and arrogant, standing alone in front of the tavern door. In just a moment, 50 men and horses from the enemy approached, stopping about 10 meters away from the tavern, forming a neat formation. Kim Fai looked over and saw the 3 people in the front row were Mac Dyke, Truan and an old man with yellow face. Mac Dyke and Truan stood on both sides, extremely respectful towards the old man in the middle. Seeing that, Kim Fai thought to himself, strange. Could it be that the Thiat Hong gang has invited a new master and given them the authority to manage the 3 halls internally and externally? If not, why did they send both Mac Dyke and Truan here? At that time, Mac Dyke and Truan also saw Kim Fai and everyone standing in front of the tavern door, so they leaned in and whispered a few words to the yellow-faced old man. The old man suddenly raised his head and burst out laughing, a crazy, shrill laugh. After laughing, he shouted loudly, "Dang Kim Fai! If you know what to do, immediately surrender, the old man will spare your life." Kim Fai just smiled faintly, not bothering to answer. Fuko Kim Kwong could not bear it and shouted loudly, "Nonsense!" The old man smiled again, then waved his right hand vigorously. The subordinates behind immediately screamed loudly, jumped off their horses, swung their swords and rushed forward. Kim Fai laughed coldly, pulled the bitch van sword from its sheath, spun it around, and shouted, "Go ahead! Kill!" Loyan, Long Dain, and Gong Pham shouted in unison, "Kill!" The entire team of brothers rushed forward like a storm, swords flying everywhere, enemy blood splashing out like rain. Bien Ho and Ho Fong were close to Kim Fai, waiting for the order to attack. Kim Fai nodded, "You two go ahead and kill to your heart's content." Bien Ho and Ho Fong received their orders, immediately withdrew their weapons, and rushed straight into battle. The fighting immediately became fierce to the extreme. A purple shadow flashed, wherever Loyan angrily rushed, the enemy collapsed, blood splashed, and the pitiful screams rang out endlessly. The enemy's armor, which was already red, was now even more stained. Seeing this, Mac Dyke rushed out to fight. Both of them were extremely brave, fighting so fiercely that it was difficult to determine victory or defeat. Truan also brandished his weapon and jumped towards Kim Fai. When Long Dain saw it, he laughed and rushed forward to block the attack. Just hearing a loud boom sound, Truan was knocked back 3 steps. Before he could stand, Long Dain laughed and continued to attack. The stance was extremely fierce. At that moment, a terrifying scream rang out, and a yellow figure rushed down from above, aiming straight at Kim Fai's head. Gong Pham smiled faintly, pulled out his knife and slashed straight at the old man who had just landed. The weapons collided, sparking bright flames. Gong Pham directly confronted the yellow-faced old man, the opponent's most powerful expert. Kim Fai laughed coldly, jumped up to a nearby ancient tree, and shouted loudly, "Do not let go of any enemy." Standing on a high branch to observe, Kim Fai saw that the members of the Koi Dao team were all extremely heroic and pure in their swordsmanship. I'm afraid many of the martial arts masters still cannot match them. He looked at Loyan, an old man with white hair and beard, brandishing a pair of bronze clubs with both hands. The fierce attack made Mac Dyke only able to defend, completely unable to counterattack. Looking the other way, Long Dain pulled out a strange, serrated weapon, forcing Mac Dyke to the point that his limbs became confused and he repeatedly had to step back. As for Gong Pham, he was using a knife to fight with the yellow-faced old man's long stick. Although he gradually appeared exhausted, he still refused to be defeated, swinging his knife and risking counterattacks. Kim Fai stood on a small tree branch, looked all around, then suddenly raised his head and let out a long, resounding howl, loudly telling his subordinates, "Guys, finish this match quickly. Before sunset, we still have to go to Tien Ha Cao to rest." When the Koi Dao team heard that, they immediately understood the gang leader's intention. In gangsters, Clans always prioritize secrecy, especially emerging forces, and do not want their names to spread far and wide, because the bigger the name, the more jealousy and strife. Only guilds that have been famous for a long time, and are confident that no one dares to violate them, dare to embroider signs on their clothes. Yet Kim Fai blatantly announced that the next stop was Tian Ha Kiao, as if he was certain that he could destroy all the enemies in front of him. Those words were like a life-killing spell for dozens of people from the Thiat Hong gang. Koi Dao team immediately cheered loudly. The attack became even more fierce. Kim Fai let out a long howl, swung his legs and used the force of the tree branch. His body jumped 5 feet high. He rotated the Bitch Van sword, performing the Van Hai No Dao move, the first move in the Bitch Van 3 moves. I saw the blue sword light covering the air. The sword energy was like a hurricane coming down from above, hitting straight towards the old man who was fighting with Gong Fam. His mouth shouted loudly, "Gong Fam, step aside and assist the other brothers." As soon as he finished speaking, the yellow-faced old man just in time pushed the knife aside, swung the oolong tree and swung it straight down at Gong Fam's head. Seeing that, Kim Fai smiled coldly, the tip of the sword pointed straight. The old man saw the flash of sword light, cold air penetrating his bones, quickly turned around in horror, raised Oolong's head to block it, intending to push Bitch Van's sword aside. Gong Fam was sweating like rain at this time. Upon hearing Kim Fai's orders, he loudly replied, "Please obey." Then he immediately rushed into the crowd, assisted his teammates, and killed the enemy. Kim Fai saw that the yellow-faced old man was about to use Oolong to deflect his sword, so he decided to finish off the opponent with the Bitch Van sword. He smiled faintly, turned around, stepped on the tip of the enemy's stick with his toes, and thrust his sword straight down. The old man only had time to see a flash of white. The tip of the stick, as heavy as a 1,000-pound mountain, was pressed down, forced to lean against the ground. His chest thus revealed a large gap. Terrified, he quickly rolled over and ran away. Kim Fai laughed coldly and let out a sigh. "Go!" The long sword shook slightly, blue light flashed. A miserable scream rang out, red blood splashed. Kim Fai had retreated further than the staff, the tip of the sword dripping with drops of fresh blood. On the ground, the oolong tree was still deeply planted and standing tall, while the old man with the yellow face was convulsing, blood spurting from his chest like a stream. Struggling a bit, he stretched his legs twice and then died. Not far away, another miserable scream was heard. Kim Fai looked over and saw that Mac Dyke had been cut in half by Long Dain, blood splattered everywhere, intestines mixed in dust. The battle was clearly about to end. Immediately after, another blood-curdling scream rang out. Kim Fai looked the other way and saw that Truan had been hit with a hammer by Loyan, his skull shattered, blood and brains were all over his body. Long Dain and Loyan finished destroying the strong enemy, let out a roar, and rushed into the crowd to help Koi Dao team. In just a blink of an eye, dozens of enemies were almost completely killed, and 2 more followed to the underworld. Bien Ho and Ho Fong, one holding a hammer, the other holding an iron rod, their bodies covered in blood, approached Kim Fai together. Gong Fam, Loyan and Long Dain also stepped forward one after another. Kim Fai immediately advised, "Long Dain, go check the battlefield again." Long Dain was ordered to go immediately, weaving around the battlefield, checking each enemy lying on the ground to see if they were completely dead or not. Kim Fai ordered again, "Gong Fam, go investigate and see how our side suffered." Suddenly, in the middle of the battlefield, a terrible scream rang out, followed by Long Dain's voice shouting loudly, "Are fake eyelashes dead?" Kim Fai suddenly had an idea and wanted to call Long Dain to stop, but it was too late. As soon as the screams ended, Long Dain returned and reported, "Sir, all enemies have been destroyed." Kim Fai smiled and said, "Send 2 brothers to pick up the prostitute owner. Let's rest here for a while, eat dinner until we're full, then leave." Long Dain received orders to leave. Immediately afterwards, Gong Fam turned back, bowed and whispered, "Sir, on our side, 5 brothers were slightly injured, 2 were seriously injured. Kim Fai continued asking, "Are seriously injured people still able to act? Still able to walk? Use special healing medicine to bandage them?" "Yes." Loyan widened his eyes and shouted loudly, "Useless things. Even being able to walk can still be called injured?" Kung Fam respectfully replied, "In this battle, you should not have been injured." But today everyone was too enthusiastic, so there were a few mistakes. Kim Fai smiled lightly and said, "All right then. Order your brothers to clean up the battlefield, then rest for a while." In just a moment, Koi Dao Ting cleared the battlefield and buried all the corpses. At the same time, wine and meat were displayed. In the last match, although the opponent was not very powerful, but as soon as he fought, he won, making the brothers' spirit extremely excited. As soon as they saw the rice wine, everyone happily ate and drank. The atmosphere was bustling again. The sun gradually disappeared to the west. Kim Fai ordered to prepare to leave. The team members quickly arranged, put on their white AO dye, hid their weapons, and their appearance became calm and leisurely. Long Dying threw 2 pieces of silver to the shop owner. The group quietly left the tavern and boarded their horses one by one. Kim Fai gave the order to depart. Long Dying immediately shouted, "Go!" The group of white-shirt knights immediately left, leaving only the store owner standing in front of the store, bowing and saluting. Chapter 26. Vice President of the Mid-Autumn Festival. It was getting dark, and the lights were on all over Tien Ha Kiao. On the main road, the sound of horse hooves was like thunder. A group of people wearing white AO dye, riding white horses, galloped towards them. As soon as they entered the town, they immediately relaxed their reins and let their horses go leisurely. Following Kim Fai's orders, Kung Fam went first to find a hotel. He stopped in front of a large, gallant-looking inn, then jumped off his horse. As soon as the old man saw a white-shirt warrior, he quickly retreated inside, not daring to show his face. The shopkeeper walked out the door, just in time to see Kung Fam entering. He clasped his hands and asked politely, "Shopkeeper, is there still enough room here for the bad guys to stay?" The shopkeeper smiled wryly and replied, Sorry, the store is full." Before he finished speaking, Loyan strode in. Hearing that there was no more room, he widened his eyes and shouted, "Lie! Who dares to say there is no room?" The shopkeeper saw Loyan being aggressive, so scared that his face turned pale, he quickly backed away, stammering, It's a bar with no room left." Loyan snorted, stepped forward, grabbed the shopkeeper by the neck, lifted him up like a chicken, and asked harshly, "Is there room or not?" The shopkeeper cried out in panic, "Sir, spare your life. Yes, there is room, yes." Loyan let go and laughed loudly like a broken bell. The old man knew right away that you still had a room. At that moment, Kim Fai and everyone arrived in front of the hotel and dismounted one by one. In the restaurant, there was a table of guests eating, drinking, and chatting loudly. Hearing Loyan's shout and laughter resounding like a bellowing cow, a man with a cruel face in the group immediately slapped the table. Dishes, cups, and saucers were blown away, falling to the ground with a clatter. He rolled his eyes and cursed loudly. Where did that smelly old man come from? How dare he harass and bully people like that in the middle of a crowded courtyard? Loyan heard the curse, immediately became angry, his hair and beard stood up, and shouted loudly, "Who dares to scold the old man?" The other big man also roared, "You dare to curse me, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed out and threw a punch to attack. Loyan laughed, Okay. You should take that childish kicking and punching game back to your wife." Having said that, he raised his left hand and gently knocked. The big man was immediately thrown around and thrown straight out of the hotel. At that moment, Kim Fai and Long Dying walked in. Seeing this, they immediately helped the big man stand up. But his right arm was swollen like a fist, and so much pain that he couldn't even make a sound, and cold sweat poured down his forehead like rain. Kim Fai took his hand, gently examined it, then gently stroked it, softly asking, "How? What's up?" The great man angrily replied, That old man. As soon as he said that, he turned around and saw that the person supporting and treating him was just a young man in a white AO dye. Immediately he angrily scolded, "You are all bigheads of the same breed." Having finished speaking, he shook Kim Phi's hand away and returned to the table. A few of his accomplices intended to intervene, but seeing that the old man was so aggressive, they were all frightened and no one dared to move. At this time, everyone in the team had arrived, so they followed the barkeeper inside. The shopkeeper arranged a few rooms for them in the west to stay. The next morning, as soon as everyone woke up, they packed their bags and immediately set out. Along the way, although we encountered many sneak attackers, they were all dealt with in the blink of an eye. The reputation of Bitch Ba Bang spread everywhere. At the same time, a shocking news broke out. The current leader of Bitch Ba Bang is Kim Huck, leader of Dang Kim Phi, who has stirred up the martial arts many times. There are even rumors that he was beaten to death by Wuxia, the three ghosts, and his body was thrown into the river long ago. Bitch Ba Bang continued straight ahead. No one dared to cause trouble, and they also did not tease anyone, all the way towards Makfu Mountain to make an appointment on Mid-Autumn Festival. Although this time the Thiat Hong gang only sent a letter to Bitch Ba Gang, forces everywhere, including the 9 major sects, sent masters to attend the conference. A great slaughter is secretly waiting. It is said that Thiat Hong gang has long invited many great assassins, old devils who have been in seclusion for a long time, to oppose Bitch Ba Gang. There are rumors that the leader of Thiat Hong gang, Ta Phong Bang, has recruited a great master, Sai No 2C. No one outside knows what the truth is. Also, according to word of mouth, the leader of the Black Ops 40 years ago, once the martial arts commander Phuong Tran Tien, has not yet appeared in the Thiat Hong gang. Therefore, everyone in the world was frightened, worried that a great calamity was about to strike. Therefore, everyone's eyes were focused on the decisive battle on Makfu Mountain on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. 000. On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, the sun had just set and the moon had just risen when it was covered by the Ghost of Sorrows, so deep that one could not see the bottom. At the square in Ghost Sorrows, several hundred martial arts experts had gathered. Thiat Hong Bang was confident that this time would win, so they even built a house on stilts to entertain the heroes. In the stilt house, Hak Sat Tam Ma wearing a blue shirt and Thuan Quan Bao Tu Lao wearing a pink shirt were already sitting elegantly. In addition, there were more than 10 other characters, each with an unusual expression, obviously all newly arrived guests of the Thiat Hong gang. Most notable was a scholar wearing ragged clothes and a thin figure, sitting right in the chair, with an arrogant demeanor different from ordinary people. Everyone was talking loudly. Some people guessed that the Confucian student was Ngabo that Hoi Phuong Tran Tien, but at that time it was still early. The key figures of the gangs had not yet arrived, so no one dared to confirm that he was Phuong Tran Tien. The moon gradually reached the top of the mountain, and more people attended the festival. In the guest house, the number of people has doubled. Next to the owner's stilt house, Tai No, chasing the soul of the king of Hell Dot Ta Phong, dressed in a martial artist's uniform, with a polite appearance, was seated in the middle seat. On both sides of him were Luke Thieu Ma Quan and an old man with a strange shape. These two people both have poor appearance, dry and thin body, blonde hair and yellow beard, looking extremely scary. It is said that they are Tin Truck Hai Song Demon. To the right of Song Yu, there were 3 people with pale faces, looking like drowned people who had just been rescued. They seemed to be wearing human skin masks, so no one could recognize their true faces. Behind those 7 people are more than 10 other characters, all killers without blinking an eye. Just looking at the layout is enough to see that today the Thiat Hong gang has brought out all its experts, as if they are sure of victory and cannot lose. The moon has reached its peak. Suddenly, the sound of a wolf howling in all directions was heard around the Devil's Gate, an unusually creepy sound that made everyone who heard it feel cold and their hair stood on end. As soon as the howl ended, about 20 white shadows appeared on the path up to the Ghost Sorrow sword, and in the blink of an eye they rushed straight into the arena. The mountain top immediately stirred. Bitch Ba Bang has arrived. Not long after, a team of white-shirt boxers, with a proud spirit, appeared on the top of the mountain and headed straight into the arena. The leader was Kim Huk, Command Master Dang Kim Phi, followed by 21 people, in neat ranks. Upon arriving, the whole team stood in a horizontal line. Kim Phi has a handsome appearance, clasps his hands and bows in a circle in all four directions, and speaks in a loud voice. Dear brothers and elders, today I have come to negotiate with the Thiat Hong gang. Those who were not invited by Tao Fong to assist in the battle, please retreat 100 meters away, lest you accidentally injure yourself. Everyone was talking loudly. Everyone thought that Kim Phi was a bit too extravagant. Seeing that the crowd was still noisy and no one was willing to retreat, Kim Phi immediately raised his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, gang leader Thiat Hong has arranged many ambushes all around. Once they lose, they are ready to use every trick, using the majority to bully the few to win. I kindly remind you in advance, whether you listen or not is up to you. As soon as he finished speaking, a blue-shirt rider stepped out from the crowd and loudly said, Brother Dang, have you been doing well since the day we broke up? Little brother is specially here to help you. Kim Phi recognized that person was Han Fong Kim Bok Dat Fong, the first master of the Hoa Sun sect, highly skilled in martial arts, and devoted to him. So he smiled and replied, My brother would like to thank you in advance. He turned to his brothers in the team and said, This person is the great hero Han Fong Kim Bok. Everyone simultaneously raised their hands to pay respects to Bok Dat Fong. Bok Dat Fong looked around the squad, couldn't help but feel scared, and thought to himself, I wonder where Kim Phi has recruited so many martial arts masters. It seems that today it is difficult to know which cat bites which. At that time, the spectators began to spread out in all four directions, leaving a large space in the middle as an arena. Kim Phi turned towards Ta Fong, clasped his hands and greeted loudly, Hello Master Ta. Ta Fong laughed and replied, Young Master Deng is truly extraordinary. Kim Phi smiled faintly and continued, Please, Leader Ta, gather your clan's people in the middle of the arena, then let's have a quick battle. Hearing him say that, everyone was extremely surprised. Bok Dat Fong stood next to Kim Phi, his expression calm and coldly said, This idea is very good. Ta Fong was secretly happy, but on the surface he pretended to think for a moment and then slowly asked, The meaning of the lack of half is, can we both resolve it in a duel? Kim Phi smiled faintly and replied, Sooner or later there must be a melee. If I were you, I would have called all the experts hiding in the dark corners out here, determined to live without having to wait. Ta Fong burst out laughing. Okay. The owner must follow the guest's wishes. If you guys want a big battle, this clan leader would also like to accompany you. As soon as he finished speaking, from the stilt house, a fiery arrow shot into the sky. Murderous aura immediately filled the space. In just a moment, the silhouettes of many people appeared in the arena. More than 20 yellow-shirt men appeared, each of them agile in body and full of spirit. Just a glance was enough to know that they were all masters. The match was about to explode. Kim Phi laughed loudly. Ta Fong, with just these 20 people, if you want to win against this side, it's a dream. In front of the heroes, I know that you have not dared to call out all the soldiers. But it's okay, whenever you want to add more people, just do it. Saying this, he turned around and shouted to his masters, Prepare to fight. At the same time, Kim Phi took off her white AO dye, revealing an all-red outfit inside, with blue waves embroidered on her chest. All of his subordinates also wore similar clothes, each of them carrying large swords at their waists. Ta Fong saw that Kim Phi was ready to fight, so he smirked and said, What a wild boy. Today, if I don't let you spill blood on this mountain top, I swear I will never set foot in the world again. Saying that, he raised his head and laughed loudly, his laughter resounding, shocking the listeners' ears. At that moment, the Thiat Hong gang's subordinates simultaneously withdrew their weapons. They silently signaled, and immediately dense hidden weapons like a meteor shower rushed towards Kim Phi and his teammates. Kim Phi shouted loudly, Kill! Loyan also roared, Brothers, go ahead, kill! In an instant, The subordinates swung their swords like the wind, deflecting the cold arrows that came. Bien Ho and Ho Fong, one holding a hammer, the other holding an iron rod, followed closely behind Kim Fai and rushed forward. Loyon pulled out a pair of bronze maces and rushed straight into the middle of the enemy battle. Long Dian also brandished a strange weapon like a saw blade, followed Loyon, and beat him nonstop. As for Kim Fai and Ta Fong, in the blink of an eye they fought for more than 20 rounds, still undecided. Kim Fai silently thought. They still ambushed a large number of people and used the ghost magic Xa-Luan battle. If it drags on, the fate of defeat will surely fall into my hands. It's best to use all our strength to fight quickly. Thinking that, Kim Fai let out a howl and wielded the Bichvan sword. Immediately, thousands of blue lights covered Ta Fong. Ta Fong roared in terror, spinning his sword and desperately trying to defend. But after only 5 more rounds, he was already exhausted, sweat was pouring down his forehead, it was clearly difficult to endure. At this moment, in a losing position, he only had hope of using all his strength to make a desperate move to win. Horrible screams and screams rang out everywhere, causing Ta Fong's mind to become chaotic. At this moment, he felt like a ship losing control in the middle of a big sea during a storm, with pressure from all around to the point of suffocation. He clearly understood that sooner or later he would die under Kim Fai's Bichvan sword. Suddenly, a faint laugh rang out from the edge of the battlefield. The middle-aged Confucian student had pale faces and ragged clothes. He didn't know when he jumped to Kim Fai's side. That scene made Kim Fai secretly scared. He immediately deployed the second position of the Bichvan triform. Ta Fong only saw thousands of cold blades stabbing from all directions at the same time. He was extremely frightened and had to use all his strength to defend. Kim Fai chuckled, switched to another sword position, aimed straight at Ta Fong's head and slashed down. Ta Fong quickly raised his bars to block. Just hearing a kung sound, the tiger's hand was torn open, fresh blood shot out, and the blood energy in his body swirled violently. Why silently thought, this time, I'm afraid I'll die. His throat suddenly turned salty, he spat out a large mouthful of blood, his shoulder ached, and a faint laugh rang out in his ears. His body seemed to be lifted by wind and clouds, he flew up and gradually lost consciousness. Speaking of Kim Fai, he had just performed the third sword stance, confident that Ta Fong would definitely be destroyed under the Bichvan sword, when suddenly a faint laugh rang out behind him, accompanied by a fierce gust of wind. He could not take the position in time, only had time to turn around. The tip of the sword passed Ta Fong's shoulder, and at the same time conveniently blocked the attack from behind. Immediately after that, a faint laugh rang out. That white shadow jumped into the air and conveniently grabbed Ta Fong, rushing away as fast as the wind. At the same time, a streak of blue light resembling a rainbow, dazzling like electricity, shot straight behind Kim Fai. Kim Fai quickly jumped back 5 feet away. As soon as he touched the ground, an unimaginably strong gust of wind pressed directly into his chest, while the blue rainbow streak continued to slash down on his head. Chapter 27. Blood washes Iron Hong Bang. Kim Fai was startled. Quickly using all his body and true strength, his 2 palms shot out 18 in a row, both legs hooked and kicked continuously. Thanks to that, the rainbow-like blue light just passed by him, just in time to escape the dangerous range. It sounds slow, but the match goes extremely fast. Just heard a bang sound, the 2 wind palms collided, the ground there was dented into a deeper hole than before. Kim Fai was horrified, cold sweat broke out. When he calmly looked closely, he saw a middle-aged scholar and a skinny old man, holding a blue longsword, looking at him bewilderedly. His ears still echoed with pitiful screams, like a sharp blade piercing straight into his heart. That sound was so familiar that every time a brother was massacred, his heart ached intensely. The fighting in the arena had now descended into chaos and madness. Kim Fai coldly looked straight at the middle-aged Confucian student and the skinny old man, then said loudly, "The martial arts of the two are truly amazing. Please tell me your identity, so that I don't accidentally kill an anonymous person." The middle-aged Confucian student laughed shrilly and replied, "The old man is Ngabo Sol Phuong Tran Tien. Kid, prepare to die." Having finished speaking, he swung his fan, turning into dozens of fans, as fast as lightning, continuously launching 10 attacks. Each fan position is aimed directly at the opponent's vital points. Seeing that, Kim Phi smiled faintly, shrugged his shoulders, then slid out and continued to ask, "What is the name of this person?" The skinny old man laughed like crazy and replied, "Little boy, go down and ask King of Hell and you'll know the old man's full name right away." Having finished speaking, he swung the long sword quickly. The sword light turned into a blue rainbow, aiming straight at King Phi's 8 acupuncture points. King Phi laughed cheerfully and replied, "Great. 2 people attack at the same time so we don't have to fight twice to kill them both." As soon as he finished speaking, blue sword light struck like thunder. Kim Phi smiled faintly and immediately swung his bitch van sword out to block. Kong! 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 The sound of clashing weapons rang out endlessly. Figures suddenly jumped out and rushed back in. The battle was extremely intense. Fighting for about 10 rounds, Kim Phi used the one-line flying away technique, gliding back and forth between the sword light and the fan shadow. No matter how powerful the opponent's attack was, they couldn't touch him one bit. The battle between the 3 people became more and more intense. Outsiders only saw a stream of blue sword light and a strip of white fan shadow tightly wrapped around the blue stream of light in the middle, all rushing back and forth as quickly as a shuttle on a loom. Suddenly, Kim Phi let out a long howl, cried out inaudibly, then began to use Bitch Van Tam Tuk to deal with it. Phuong Tran Tien and the skinny old man immediately felt that Kim Phi's sword position was much stronger than before. The pressure increased continuously. Sometimes the enemy attacks from which direction, they don't have time to know. There was no place left to defend. The situation was extremely dangerous. The 2 of them were angry and tried their best. The shadow of the fan and the light of the blue sword were like 2 thick curtains tightly surrounding Kim Phi. Who would have thought that no matter how fierce the pressure was, they still could not surround him? On the contrary, each wave of Kim Phi's sword light rolled in like a rushing tide, pushing back. Both were startled and frightened, so they had to use all their strength to defend. Suddenly, Kim Phi let out a loud scream. His sword momentum broke out, turning into waves of green light that tightly surrounded the 2 people. The Confucian student and the old man only felt the external pressure becoming heavier and heavier, surrounded by blue sword light. Both were no different from Ta Phuong just now, like someone standing on a boat that had lost control in the middle of a stormy sea. Phuong Tran Tien suddenly thought of a person. His face changed greatly, and he shouted loudly, "Danger, run quickly. This is Bitch Van Tam Tuk." He quickly used all his strength, continuously thrusting 18 palms, and at the same time unleashed 21 fan counterattacks. As soon as the skinny old man heard the 4 words Bitch Van Tam Tuk, he was startled and frightened. He immediately jumped up to avoid it. 2 explosions rang out fiercely. Kim Phi turned his sword position, aiming straight at the other 2 people. Both panicked and quickly jumped back to retreat. Another resounding boom sound. Immediately after that, there were 2 miserable cries of woe and huh. The figure was blown up, blood sprayed like rain. The blue rainbow rushed out and crashed into the ground, making a chilling swoosh sound. The dust gradually settled. Everyone saw Kim Phi still standing in the same place, her face cold, her hand tightly holding the bitch van sword. Fresh blood on the blade dripped to the ground. On the ground, the skinny old man lay motionless. His chest was torn open, his intestines were sticking out, and fresh blood flooded the ground. Phuong Tran Tien's face was pale and his mouth was constantly spitting blood. He stomped his foot and ran straight down the mountain. Kim Phi saw this and shouted loudly, "Give me your life!" While shouting, he swung his sword and threw himself to chase. Suddenly he heard Loyon scream, "You bastard!" Kim Phi was startled and quickly turned around. Before his eyes, 5 great martial artists were surrounding Loyon. His subordinate's left arm was hanging down, blood flowing like a stream, but he was still forced to attack. As for Luoyan, his right hand was still waving the bronze mace, his silver hair was loose, his body looked like a madman, desperately fighting back. Although his martial arts were strong, he was surrounded by 5 masters and was seriously injured. His attack gradually slowed down, and the situation became extremely dangerous. Seeing this, Kim Fai shouted loudly, "Luoyan, don't be afraid. Here I am." He immediately swung his sword around, aiming at the other 5 people, and each stabbed 4 swords. The 5 men were threatened, and the attack was no longer as discreet as before. Luoyan took the opportunity to roar, swinging his bronze mace to counterattack fiercely like a storm. Kim Fai said, "Luoyan, please rest, let me help you." As he finished speaking, his sword light and palm wind attacked the 5 people. Kim Fai laughed out loud, performed Bitch Van Tam Tuk, and in the blink of an eye, he heard several screams, blood splashed like rain. One guy fell dead on the spot, and before the remaining 4 guys had time to recover, each of them was hit by another sword. The 4 people simultaneously screamed miserably. The red figure mixed with the blue sword light rushed to the other side, rushing straight into the crowd. Luoyan stood looking, laughing loudly. The boss is really powerful. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a member of the Thiat Hong gang chase and kill a junior of the Koi Dao team. The junior retreated close to him. Luoyan immediately swung his mace. The other guy only had time to cry out, "Oh wow!" His skull was broken in half and he fell down dead. After Luoyan killed the enemy, he became even more enthusiastic. While trying to recover his true strength, he saw Gong Pham fighting hard with 4 great men, so he called out loudly, "Old Loi is here to help." He swung his bronze hammer and aimed straight at the nearest arrow. Just hearing a pop sound, before the opponent could scream, his skull was broken and he died on the spot. The moon has already set, but the killing in Devil's Gate is not over yet. Blood flowed into streams, bodies piled up, broken limbs were scattered everywhere. Screams and cheers mixed together, forming a procession full of blood and death. The Bitch Ba Bang brothers gradually exhausted themselves. Kim Fai quickly took off her Ao Dai, revealing the clan master's battle clothes underneath. The green long sword in his hand glittered in the middle of the night. Wherever he approached, the opponent was frightened. Thanks to not Twin Fu's body style, profound strength, and mysterious swordsmanship, he risked his life to kill, trying his best to save the situation. All of the juniors were injured, some collapsed and lay motionless, up to 6 or 7 people. More than 500 enemy corpses were scattered all over the ground, and with just one misstep, one stepped on a corpse. At this moment, Kim Fai seemed like a god, but his heart was extremely calm. He secretly calculated, even if he withdrew right now, it would not be a loss, because the enemy's main force had lost more than half of the enemy's elite force tonight. On our side, the brothers went through a night of killing, both physically and mentally tired. If we do not retreat soon and encounter additional enemy reinforcements, the consequences will be unpredictable. While he was killing and thinking, he suddenly heard a long howl ringing out. His heart was startled. Danger! The enemy has more people coming. I'm afraid our side. Before he could finish his thoughts, the howling suddenly stopped. A tall, thin figure with a pale yellow face descended from the sky. As soon as he touched the ground, that person shouted loudly, "Sword Phi! Big brother is a step late. I hope he will forgive me." Having finished speaking, he raised his hands, white smoke emitted, and grabbed the sword-wielding men who had just rushed forward. Just hearing a dry click sound, the guys didn't have time to see clearly before they fell to the ground, dead on the spot. Kim Fai calmed down and looked closely, only to realize that it was Bak Kat and Quan Hong Tien Saturday. He was delighted and said loudly, "Big brother! There are too many opponents and they are too shameless." Kim Fai's voice at that time was like a child finding support in his big brother. Bak Kat and Quan laughed a few strange sounds and said, "These damn enemies! Let the old man try to see how powerful the recently practiced White Kat divine art is." As he finished speaking, his body turned into a stream of yellow smoke and rushed straight into the crowd. Wherever he went, white mist rose, and the sound of miserable wailing immediately echoed. At that moment, a new Thiat Hong gang expert suddenly appeared in the arena, laughing endlessly. He smiled as he raised his hands, still holding the bent sword in his hand. Just as Long Dain passed by, he immediately slashed. Fresh blood spurted out, the guy fell down and died immediately. Next, several people from the Thiat Hong gang laughed at the same time, laughing so hard that they almost lost their breath but still did not stop. And soon, all the people of the Thiat Hong gang were laughing like crazy. Their strength was seriously weakened. The commanders saw this and immediately ordered a retreat. King Fai felt strange, knowing there must be something unusual, so he ordered the pursuit to stop. Who would have thought that the group of people continued to laugh, laughing until they were exhausted and rolling on the ground. Just a moment later, each of the 7-headed men bled out, then died one after another. The Bitch Ba Bang brothers were all stunned, not understanding what had happened. Kim Fai looked at Ba Kat and Quan and asked, "Big brother direction, could it be?" Hong Tien Sat quickly waved his hand and replied, "No, not me." So strange, so strange. Just when everyone was still doubting, suddenly from the foot of the mountain came a sound of laughter, accompanied by the sound of rushing horse hooves. A pair of horses is approaching the top of the mountain. The person leading the way was the Grand Master of Bak Dagmon. He stepped forward, clasped his hands and bowed to King Fai and said, "Because Junior Dunan was busy, he came a little late. I hope Senior will forgive me." King Fai quickly helped Dunan up and said, "Sec Master you, don't be so polite. We are all one family." Having finished speaking, he immediately introduced Dunan to his subordinates. Everyone exchanged a few pleasantries with each other. Suddenly King Fai remembered something and asked, "Sec Master you, just now the enemies laughed like crazy and died." Dunan smiled and replied, "That is the laughing sand of this subject. Because the Bogdak command talisman was lost a long time ago, we didn't use it and only used it today." When Fu Ko Kim Kwong heard that, he laughed loudly and interjected, "Really beneficial. If it weren't for them dying with such joy, I'm afraid we would have been tired to death." That sentence seemed to remind King Fai. He immediately ordered everyone to retreat into the shade of a tree to rest, sent someone to get water to wash off the blood on their clothes, and told Long Dain, "Long Dain, please send some people to clean up the battlefield. We still have to go straight to the Thiat Hong gang's lair." Du Long Kim Kwong respectfully replied, "Please obey." Just as he turned around to leave, Du Nan spoke, "We would like to entrust the task of cleaning the battlefield to our brothers, because we have the powder to transform the body." King Fai nodded in agreement, leaving the battlefield to Du Nan's subordinates to handle. When he looked back and saw corpses scattered and blood flowing into streams, he couldn't help but frown. At that moment, Gong Pham stepped forward to reported that the leader and members of the team were all injured, and 4 people were killed. Kim Fai said sadly, "Please bury the bodies of those 4 brothers and set up memorial stele for them." Gong Pham obeyed and immediately went to work. Not long after, people found the bodies of 4 brothers in the Koi Dao team. Du Nan immediately ordered his subordinates to sprinkle corpse powder on the enemy's corpse. In just a moment, hundreds of corpses turned into yellow water, seeping deep into the ground. As for the Bitch Ba Bang brothers, everyone was tired and exhausted. However, they still dug a large hole. Everyone's faces were sad and their eyes were red. Everyone stood around the hole, quietly celebrating the burial of the 4 deceased brothers. After filling the ground, Long Dain brought a large rock and buried it in front of the grave. Kim Fai prayed for a while, then used his fingers to carve on the stone stele, "The 4 brothers rest here, having heroically contributed to the victory of Bitch Ba Bang, dedicating all their strength. Rest in peace, beloved brothers, great heroes." The lower clause reads, "All Bitch Ba Bang brothers worship together. Year, month, day." All the brothers burst into tears and mourned the 4 people, because they had grown up together, learned literature and practiced martial arts together, and lived together in birth and death. Who would have thought that after just one battle, Yin and Yang would part ways, never to see each other again? After the ceremony, everyone dispersed to find water to drink. Du Nan smiled and said, "No need to search anymore, let me guide you to get water." Kim Fai also smiled and replied, "Grand Master, you is so thoughtful." The entire team of brothers immediately took off their white shirts and followed Du Nan down the mountain. The mountain fell into silence again as before. No one knew that an earth-shattering battle had just taken place here. Chapter 28. Wash away the feud. Under a far corner of the sky, the sun had just risen, sunlight shining through the forest onto the vast field. In the middle of the field is a small river. The water surface is more than 2 meters wide, deep and clear. You can clearly see the fish swimming around. A team of exhausted soldiers quietly advanced. As soon as they touched the riverbank, everyone immediately fell to the ground to rest. When the sun rose high, their energy gradually recovered, and the soldiers excitedly jumped into the river to swim. The bright red battle robes were made of unknown material, and water was impermeable, but as soon as the blood on his shirt touched the water, it melted away, causing the clear river to become red in just a moment. Kim Fai finished bathing and sat down under an ancient tree on the shore. Long Dain, Loyan, Gong Pham, and Ba Kat and Quan also gathered together to discuss upcoming plans. The wound on Loyan's left arm has been bandaged and is no longer painful. As soon as he sat down, he spoke first. The deputy chair agrees. Taking advantage of this great victory, we should go straight to the Thiat Hong gang's lair and give them a landslide that will make chickens fly and dogs bark. Ba Kat and Quan laughed loudly and interjected, "Brother, won't you let me join your clan?" Kim Fai smiled, turned to ask everyone, "What do you think?" Du Nan also spoke up. The junior asked to join. Everyone replied in unison, "Welcome." Ba Kat and Quan was extremely happy, laughed loudly and said, "In that case, I completely agree." We immediately head straight to the Iron Hong gang. Long Dain also laughed and interjected, "According to my opinion, Brother Du's subordinate disciples should not follow along for the time being. It's not too late to go back to Bitch Ba Lake to practice for a while, then go down to the mountains to fight." Du Nan, who had personally witnessed the martial arts of the armies, knew that his 10 great disciples were still far behind, so he humbly replied, "I also think so, I'm just afraid to say it first." After everyone discussed, the team set out with the addition of Ba Kat and Quan and Du Nan, a total of 19 people, straight to Thiat Hong Mountain. Du Nan's 10 subordinate disciples returned first to Bak Dakmon, summoned all the disciples and then went to Bitch Ba Lake to join the Bitch Ba gang. Because of that decision, Bak Dakmon gradually disappeared from the world, but Bitch Ba Bang had an army of clever people, skilled in poisons. After a while of discussion, Gong Pham suddenly spoke up, "I wonder if Fong Kim Kwang and the others have left yet." Kim Fai clicked his fingers for a moment then replied, "Today has just passed 50 days since we entered the Imperial Palace. Fong Kim Kwang and Quang Thiat 5 Knights are afraid they have already arrived in Jiangnam." Gong Pham continued, "It would be best for them to reach Thiat Hong Mountain in time to join us. Otherwise, my current strength seems to be still simple and somewhat weak." Loyan glared and shouted, "Useless things! Your father is so aggressive, why are you so shy and ordinary?" Gong Pham also narrowed his eyes and responded, "Uncle Loi, using soldiers depends on knowing people who know you, so you can hope to win hundreds of battles. Only with stupid courage, even if you have the strength to overturn mountains, it will be useless." Loyan was stunned when he heard that, not knowing how to refute. A moment later, he stroked his silver beard, nodded and said, Okay, what you say is right, kid, I don't want to argue with you anymore." Everyone continued to talk for a while longer. Kim Fai immediately turned to ask Du Nan, "Brother Yu, are the poisons and hidden weapons you brought with you enough?" Du Nan immediately replied, Enough. There was a bag of laughing sand of about 2,000 grains, a bag of crying sand of about 2,000 grains, 20 poisonous fire bullets, and many other miscellaneous items. Loyan interjected and asked, "What is laughing sand?" Just a few grains of sand can make those bastards laugh to death? Du Nan smiled and replied, "The grain of laughing sand is as small as regular sand, but for ordinary martial artists, just one grain of sand is enough to laugh to death." Luoyan stuck out his tongue and exclaimed, "My goodness! Is that thing that scary?" At that time, the sun was almost at its peak. Everyone finished eating, rested for a while and then prepared to leave. The 10 Bagdak sect disciples all said goodbye and returned home. Du Nan and Bakat and Quan also changed into fiery red combat clothes, wearing pure white Ao dye and wolf masks on their heads. As soon as King Phi gave the order, the whole team immediately set off. Soon, they arrived in front of a ruined temple. The horse was already hidden inside. Everyone came in, took the horse out and rode together, heading straight to the south. The road is full of dangerous mountains, but the horses are all handsome, only one can be selected out of 1,000. Therefore, the 19 horses still galloped as fast as the wind, and by dark they had traveled several hundred miles. Coming to a small forest, everyone got off their horses, sent 2 people to stay in guard, and the rest went deeper into the mountain. This is the back of Thiat Hong Mountain, only about 30 meters from the mountain camp. Looking back from afar, the mountain range curves like a rainbow across the sky. After walking a while, Kim Phi suddenly stopped and told everyone, "The Thiat Hong gang has a large force and must be fully prepared. The entrance to the mountain camp is under that big rock. We divided into 4 paths to enter, then met at the general altar." Having finished speaking, he immediately divided the squad into 4 groups. Gong Pham led 4 people from behind to circle in. Luoyan also led 4 people to attack from the right wing, while King Phi and the rest directly attacked the main hall. After everyone received their orders, they took off their white Ao dye and immediately set off. Waiting for the other 3 groups to leave, King Phi turned back and said softly, "Let's go." 4 figures were as red as fire, their bodies as fast as meteors, rushing straight to the top of the mountain. At that time, the sun had set and all around gradually fell into darkness. On the cliff top of Thiat Hong Bang Mountain, 5 large words are carved, Tai Hong Bang General Group. But in front of the big door, under that cliff, there was absolutely no sign of anyone guarding it. If the enemy hadn't run away in panic, they would have arranged extremely strict defenses. Sure enough, just a moment later, a red figure quickly passed through the big door of Thiat Hong Bang headquarters. Next, the second ball, then the third, then the fourth, entered and turned through the main entrance. Inside the headquarters it was pitch black, not a single person could be seen. The 4 people quickly arrived at the courtyard in front of the hall. After a quick observation, Kim Phi smiled faintly and coldly ordered, "Burn." As soon as the words ended, a low, creepy laugh rang out in the darkness. Immediately followed by a loud voice, "Heaven has a way that you don't go, but hell has no door and you just crawl in. Hee, once you get here, don't expect to leave alive." As soon as the voice ended, the laughter echoed endlessly. Bakat and Quan could not hold back, quietly walked straight towards the source of the sound, raised his hand and struck twice. Immediately, 2 streams of white wind ripped through the wind and headed straight for that place. Bang! Boom! Sand and dust flew everywhere, houses shook as if they were about to collapse. Amidst the cloud of dust, a black shadow rushed out from a dark corner. Bakat and Quan smiled faintly and immediately chased after him, repeatedly firing his palms in pursuit. Pressured by 17 blows in one breath, the black shadow suddenly jumped 5 meters high, then turned and dived straight down, both hands grabbing the top of his head. At that moment, Kim Phi shouted loudly, "Rush in!" The 3 red shadows immediately split into 3 directions and rushed forward. Inside, hidden weapons shot out as densely as grasshoppers, aiming straight at the 3 people. Kim Phi laughed loudly, pulled out Bitch Van's sword and danced loudly. A blue rainbow swirled like a pinwheel, sending all the hidden weapons flying back into the house. Suddenly from inside, 5 people holding bows and crossbows jumped out, surrounding King Phi. He smiled coldly, using Long Feng's energy, his body curved like a snake. In just a moment, he glided in front of those 5 people. The 5 men panicked, shouted in unison, pulled out their swords and slashed at King Fai's head and body. King Fai smiled faintly and said coldly, "Do you want to die?" He lightly shook the bitchvan's sword. Immediately dozens of points of sword light flashed, hitting the 3 men on the right. At the same time, the right palm retracted and suddenly launched an attack. The palm of the wind is ferocious and attacks quickly, leaving the enemy with no time to react. While the 5 men were still stunned, the sword light and palm power arrived. Just hearing a few kung sounds, the 3 swords on the right were cut in half. Immediately after that, there were 2 violent explosion sounds. The 5 men simultaneously screamed miserably. Their bodies were thrown onto the roof and then fell to the ground, dying on the spot. After killing 5 enemies, King Fai did not delay and immediately turned around and glided to the left. Suddenly from below, 3 dark shadows jumped onto the roof, chasing after them and shouting loudly, "Stop!" He turned his head to look and saw 3 gray-haired old men approaching, murderous intent immediately evident on their faces. The old man walked with a pipe in his hand, laughed coldly, waved the pipe and pointed it straight at him, his voice low. This old man is the boss of Man's Son 3 masterpieces. Before he could finish speaking, King Fai turned into a wisp of smoke, like a ghost, gliding straight in front of them. Man's Son Tam Kit is actually Man's Son Tam Kit, famous for his reputation in the world, and his martial arts skills are not ordinary. Seeing that King Fai didn't say a word but just rushed forward, all 3 were secretly frightened and quickly shouted, "Joint attack!" As soon as the sound ended, the boss waved his pipe and pointed it directly at King Fai's major acupuncture points. At the same time, the remaining 2 men also brandished their weapons and attacked from both sides. King Fai smiled faintly and shook the bitchvan's sword vigorously. A blue sword shadow accompanied by the sound of swooshing sword energy billowed out and counterattacked towards the 3 people. Man's Son 3 ghosts were startled, quickly retreated, and cried out in unison, "This guy is tough." They had only uttered half a sentence when King Fai was already twirling her right wrist. Immediately afterwards, there was a sound of "oh wow" and fresh blood splashed. The 3 rolled around on the roof and then fell straight to the ground, dying on the spot. At that time, Bak and Quan showed off his body as fast as a ghost, used Bak magic, and fought with a skinny old man. That old man's deep internal strength, without saying a word, continued to strike. The palm wind was as fierce as thunder, the shadow of the palm was as dense as showers, rushing towards Bak and Quan. Bak and Quan was extremely angry, raised his face to the sky and howled for a long time. His face suddenly turned pale, his already skinny body became even more scrawny, but his arms stretched out much longer, reaching out to grab the old man's face. The old man was startled and shouted loudly, "Bak magic!" He quickly clasped his hands together, rubbed them hard, then pushed them straight out, shouting loudly, "First line, retreat!" The hot palm wind rolled up, facing the force of Bak and Quan's palm. Bang! A fierce explosion rang out, followed by a loud bang. The roof collapsed and dust immediately filled the air. The old man howled miserably, blood sprayed from his mouth, and his body was thrown backwards. Bak and Quan shouted loudly, "Leave your life here." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed in pursuit. The old man suddenly turned his head and sprayed blood straight into Bak and Quan's face. The stream of blood that shot out like rain was the blue blood arrow, a dangerous technique famous for martial arts, only used when you are determined to kill the enemy. Bak and Quan saw this and laughed, jumped up 2 feet high, secretly using his strength, waiting for the opponent to risk his life. Sure enough, as soon as the old man finished spraying the blue blood arrow, he howled madly, turned around and threw 2 palms straight at Bak and Quan. Bak and Quan chuckled, his body turned around, and he shot like lightning. 2 consecutive punches hit the opponent's head straight in the face. Bang! Boom! In just a blink of an eye, the old man's whole body felt cold, he was thrown 2 feet away, and fell down dead immediately. At that moment, on the highest peak of Thiat Hong Mountain, an alarm bell rang out, followed by screams of killing and killing. Flames rose everywhere, signaling that a great battle, a great massacre had officially begun. Kim Phi raised his face to the sky and let out a long roar that shook the mountains and forests. Before the screams ended, he wielded his sword and rushed straight into the main hall. Behind the mountain, Loyon's curses and killing sounds resounded like thunder. At the same time, Long Dian's hysterical laughter also echoed. Screams, laughter, and shouting mixed with miserable howls, and the fire spread throughout the top of Thiat Hong Mountain. The people of the Thiat Hong gang had already expected that the enemy would come, but they did not expect the enemy to appear so quickly and unexpectedly, causing them to be caught off guard and suffer a catastrophic defeat. However, Bitch Ba Bang ultimately only had 19 people. No matter how fierce and powerful they are, they cannot destroy all of the Thiat Hong gang's disciples. In the hall at that time, blood flowed in streams, flames burned, heads fell and limbs fell everywhere. The battle was so disastrous that it was hard to imagine. Wherever Dunan went, those who followed the Thiat Hong gang either cried or laughed. They had completely lost their fighting power, so Bitch Ba Bang's people cleaned up very easily. At that time, it was already the third watch. The fire on Thiat Hong Mountain rose high into the sky. The silhouettes of people ran like crazy, the lights of swords and swords flashed, causing the moon and stars above to become gloomy. Suddenly, from the foot of Thiat Hong Mountain, a long and mournful wolf howl rang out. Each sound filled everyone's ears, making the Bitch Ba Bang brothers even more enthusiastic. Loyon danced his clubs, raised his face to the sky and howled in response. Gong Pham, covered in blood, flew in front of Kim Phi and whispered, "Dear Guild Master, Phong Kim Quang and the 5 knights have arrived. Send someone to ask if the Guild Master allows them to rush forward." Kim Phi nodded. "Invite them up." Gong Pham laughed loudly, obeyed, then raised his face and howled a few wolf sounds, seemingly responding to the people at the foot of the mountain. Kim Phi saw blood dripping from his body but still looked extremely excited. He couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion in his heart, thinking, "They are all noble knights." Gong Pham shouted loudly, swung his sword and rushed straight into the crowd, continuing to kill. Kim Phi immediately found a high place to stand and observe, waiting for Phong Kim Quang and Quang Thiat 5 knights to arrive. Sure enough, just a moment later, the howl echoed in front of the Thiat Hong Bang headquarters. "Brothers, young and old, don't kill all the enemies. Give this guy named Lao a few, let him have some fun." As soon as the words ended, 6 figures as red as fire swept into the storm and rushed straight into the general altar. The blade's light shined like a spinning wheel. The person leading the way was Phong Kim Quang Lao Tien, with white hair, brandishing a large sword in his right hand, and swinging a mace in his left hand. Wherever he went, the enemy was startled. Behind him are 5 majestic knights. 6 people approached Kim Phi and bowed in unison, paying respects to the boss. Kim Phi waved his hand. "Exemption." He looked around the battlefield and said in a low voice, "The current situation is very unfavorable. You just go ahead and kill with all your might, no need to hold back." Having finished speaking, he spread his wings like an eagle, rushing straight into the crowd, stabbing and slashing repeatedly. Lao Tien roared loudly and shouted at the 5 knights, "Brothers, move on." As soon as he gave the order, he swung his sword and mace, laughing loudly and rushed into the enemy group to kill without hesitation. The 5 knights also followed closely behind with their swords and clubs, rushing forward to slaughter the enemy. When Bitch Ba Bang saw reinforcements arriving, morale became even more boiling. On the contrary, the enemy continuously retreated, the formation was chaotic. In the middle of the crowd, Kim Phi wielded his precious sword, rushing back and forth to kill endlessly. He gradually realized that although the opponent's martial arts skills were no less, they were all unfamiliar faces. He couldn't help but feel doubtful in his heart, wondering where the Thiat Hong gang had invited so many experts. Even so, he still could not hold back, because if he did not kill them, they would kill him. That fierce bloody battle gradually slowed down, leaving only a few people still fighting with their lives, determined to fight until their last breath. You just finished listening, Volume 5, of the series, Ancient Swordplay. The divine palm appeared. Please comment your feelings after listening to the story, and don't forget to subscribe to hear the latest stories.